Okay, again, calling the meeting to order. A couple of announcements. First and probably most importantly, everybody doesn't have their own individual microphone. So therefore, we are sharing microphones. So please, if you're going to talk into the microphone, state your name for the court records, and when we get to public comment, we'll have to have the people go up to this podium up here and speak into that mic at the end of the meeting. Other items, as you can see, and as I think the comments I've gotten is we have a very long agenda potentially today. I will acknowledge that Mr. Kennedy has asked to defer his presentation on the community partnership schools till our July council meeting, and I assured him that he'd get top billing at that meeting to make that presentation at that time. So that cuts out, I think, 42 slides or something along those lines. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and open this up with item number 1 agenda, and I believe Wayne or Shirley is going to introduce that.
I'll go ahead and do it. We've had requests from council people that we'd like to have a transportation meeting, but just with the city of Bradenton, Palmetto, and Manatee County, because we have issues that impact all of us in that thing. We could maybe get FDOT involved in that thing. We have some very specific questions. If we could schedule that just for those 3 groups, it would be great.
I think Sherry here will coordinate that maybe with Carl or your office and Shirley's, and we'll set up a time. That'd be great. I think we have something we'd all like to do.
Yeah, and if we could get it in this month, it would be terrific.
That may be tough because I think we're all in Washington next week, and then we've got
Washington's dangerous enough without you guys going.
We're going to straighten them out.
All right, perfect. As soon as we could get that, would be terrific.
That'd be great. Thank you. Anything else, though?
No, that was just concurrence on that.
Work session, right? Work session?
Correct. Okay, so moving on to item 2 is hurricane shelters. Steve Lichauer, here he is, was coming up. I think everybody should have received a handout.
Yeah, plus we just got promoted.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, councilmen, mayors, distinguished other folks here. I'm Steve Lichauer, Chief of Emergency Management for Manatee County. With me today is Sally Hall. She's the Manager of Safety and Emergency Management with the School District of Manatee. What we wanted to do is kind of go over about sheltering here in Manatee County. We, Manatee County, and the school district just signed a MOU to for sheltering, and we want to just bring you up to date on what we have and what to expect and what not to expect. So you should each have copies of these slides. And the thing about where are the local shelters, there are lists of them, but the key factor here is we do not open them all at one time, nor do we open them all in a particular order. And that being said, because we don't need the 25, 26 schools open if we're only going to evacuate portions of the county. Likewise, we always have some that are pet friendly. So we try to educate the public of, yes, a school may be next to you or down the street, but that school may not be open for this particular disaster or this event. And that's based upon, unless in most cases it would be a storm or a hurricane, it could be where is it coming, what degree is it, what kind of wind is. So we will announce through the policy group, which many of you belong, in conjunction with the school board, at which schools are opening in what order. So that's a key factor there, that they all do not open at one given time. So that's a policy decision that is then pushed out, and then we work with the school. A big thing for the public to know too is learning their level of evacuation. What we saw during Hurricane Irma was those that did not need to evacuate did, and those that didn't or did not. And we want to make sure the public is aware. East County, if you live, I think the chief is here somewhere, if you live way out east in, let's say, Chief Whitehurst area, and you're in a fairly new home, chances are you're not going to need to evacuate. But we saw that happening, that people were unaware of what level they were in. This map or one like it will be in the hurricane guides that are coming out. They're currently in the guides that are out. New ones are coming in April. There will be more in the newspaper coming out, and they can go on the county website of where, what level they are in. So important for the public to know what level they live in. Sheltering in general is being prepared. We're doing some articles that are coming out, is for people to have a plan. That's important to have, but what to bring. Because a shelter is a safe haven. And you'll see in a couple of slides, we keep saying it's a lifeboat, not a cruise ship. It's a safe haven, a roof over your head, and adequate food, nothing else. We, nor the school board, and when we say we, it's a combined effort, we do not provide bedding, we do not provide couches, we do not provide chairs, none of that. So the people have to bring what they're going to have. So being prepared to go to a shelter. A shelter, again, is a last resort. Things to remember, as I said, it's a last resort. They're located throughout the county, but again, they're open in certain orders depending on what school they are, and that's a policy decision made by the chairman of the board, the different mayors, sheriff's office, and a variety of other folks make that decision. So it's not, again, the closest to where you're living. This is a good example. A person has 20 square feet. You see the little layout here. That's as much, if that shelter gets full, 20 square feet per person is that much. So what we're trying to do is encourage people, when they do need to evacuate, to find a friend, a family member in a safe environment, whether it's in our county, out of state, or whatever. The school should be a last resort. They are safe, you get fed, but they're not a hotel. Things to prepare for, again, you each have this in print. We do this in presentations. Last year our outreach was, I think it was 30-some% up. This year we're already up on doing presentations. We have to get it out to the public, when to evacuate, when not to evacuate, what to be prepared for, and we're continuing to work on that message. And we need every jurisdiction, whether it's a city, a town, or the county, to make sure that same message is going out. We have to worry about our fur babies, and those are most important. Currently, we have 3 of the shelters that accept pets. During Hurricane Irma, as we know, the governor sat down and said every shelter will be pet friendly, and I know the school board, that's probably why I don't have hair, but it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, I believe, to make all the schools pet friendly. So again, policy decision is currently, we have just 3, but there's requirements when you do bring your pets. You have to have a container, you have to provide your own food and so forth. So important message to the public also. So again, there's a lot of things to bring in your pets, and pets to a shelter basically are dogs and cats, not pigs, not chickens, not snakes. All of these things did show up during Hurricane Irma. Okay, so couple months ago, the county and the school board entered into a local agreement. It's been signed, it's been filed with the state of putting this MOU together between the county and the school board. A couple of highlights on this is it's a 5-year program. One of the main points of the agreement is that we as in Manatee County Emergency Management School District will actually walk through each of these shelters annually to make sure that nothing has changed, because what may be an open classroom this year could be a lab next year and so forth. Something could be under construction, so we want to make sure we're all on the same page, so when the policy says let's open school X, we know what to expect. This is just a really quick map of a school, just to indicate when we talk about a school, it doesn't mean the entire school. Roughly in this one, as you see, probably 40% of the entire footprint is not usable. So you can't think, oh, that school's really big, we can put a lot of people in it. No, you cannot. So this is just an example of that school. The school board will staff the opening and the closing of the operation. They do provide a minimal staffing for the shelters, and this is something that we need to impress upon all of you, that when we start opening up, we're going to need more county, city employees to help staff the shelters, because with the minimal staffing that the school board can provide, they can't do it all by themselves. So we're going to look upon county, city, so forth, staffing to help staff those shelters, because the word we're getting down from the state now is don't expect the National Guard to come save us as we did in Hurricane Irma. They'll do check-in, check-out, occupancy, prepare simple meals. And I think if you think about what does a school feed, that's what the food is there. That's simple meals. You will be fed. You will be safe. Again, we want to make sure people sign up for Code Red. That's a reverse 911 that we in emergency management puts out the alerts that schools are open, which schools are open as shelters, what evacuation is going to take part. Obviously, we put things out on the county website, on Twitter, on Facebook. We have the Citizen Information Center that's up and rolling during a disaster. We want people to call in. They can call in to the county number 749-3500 with questions, and we want them to be prepared. Before I end and entertain any questions real briefly, I just want to remind you that on April the 18th is our annual hurricane drill that we're looking forward to. This year, it's going to be quite impacting to 2 cities and the corridor of Manatee County, where we need to get people prepared. So make sure your police departments, fire agencies, public works, and so forth are going to come to this drill, because it's going to be very important. We've had it written with items that we learned out of Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Irma. So Sally, did you have anything you needed to add? So, Mr. Chairman, entertain any questions?
Sure. Commissioner Whitmore?
Just 3 quick questions I just need to ask. First of all, do all the schools now have that are the shelters have their generators, and gas stations in the local areas? I know there was a law that required that they had generators. I know we run out of gas, but we were worried in past hurricanes about not having generators. And can you please tell us, it didn't say on your slides, medically needy shelters, I think one of them was Braden River, but I can't remember anymore, and then animal-friendly shelters. Which ones are they? Because it doesn't say on your handout.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Oh. As far as the generators in the school, Sally, not all schools have generators. So there is no guarantee that your school or shelter will have a generator. The only one that we can definitely say is the special needs shelter. There is a special medical special needs shelter and a backup special needs shelter that's not on the list for purpose because we do not want general public showing up those required spaces. So there are 2 facilities identified as the medically needed shelters. And on the
What one is it? Which one is the main one?
Nolan is the main one, and,
You don't have to say the other.
okay. So if you look at the slide I have up, you'll see number 13, Braden River Middle, Manatee High, and Mills Elementary are the 3 pet-friendly shelters.
River Meadow?
Any other questions?
Commissioner Bellamy.
Yes, this is just speaking for experience. Maybe we need to, since all of us are here, maybe we need to be proactive instead of reactive. There was an experience based on Irma that when all those shelters filled up, we also filled up with pet-friendly shelters. Right here, we only have 3. I'm wondering what our options are, what can we do, because what I learned from my own experience is that families are very sensitive about their furry loved ones, and we need to make sure that we have a plan on that. So I'm just curious, how do we look at that?
Okay.
Although we don't want to repeat what happened in Irma, I believe that the school district is prepared for something of that magnitude again, as we have kits now. We have developed kits for our staff, and we have also have the ability to, if we must open again as complete pet-friendly shelters, we have stuff that we will lay down on floors. So we have been preparing for something of the magnitude again. We just hope it doesn't ever happen. It was quite expensive cleanup.
Commissioner Benak.
Yes, thank you for this. I know that Sarasota County, just because I followed what they did, that they had gone through an extensive exercise after Irma. They had partnered, I think, with Charlotte County, and they've looked at some things. They've actually talked about building some public shelters specifically, and I know they were lobbying, the legislature, Charlotte County was, for funding for that, and I know we're not going to probably go that way, but I do know one of the recommendations, and I believe they've adopted it in Sarasota County, and they went through this with FEMA, is to make every shelter pet-friendly. I thought I heard that from you, but perhaps not if we only have 3.
No, we're only starting out with 3, and like Sally said, if it is required, then we'll progress inward, because in doing that, it takes extra staffing even to do that. Now, Sarasota did, if I'm not mistaken, they're opening up all their shelters at once. I can say that it would be cost a fortune to open up every one at once. If you had 3 people in a shelter, you're going to have many times that in staffing there, so we want to look at phasing in that. We have to take into consideration ones that are under construction, renovations, and things like that too. What we are doing, matter of fact, I think next week I'm meeting with one of the churches to see what we can do, because we want to be prepared for, we describe it as blue skies, which is every day, versus gray skies, a storm. But post-storm, it's very important to get these schools opened again. And if there's a shelter, cannot have schools. And the superintendent, the board members, and so forth can tell you the issues when you prolong school openings. So not only do we need those host shelters or post-disaster shelters in, so we're out trying to find locations that once a storm has passed, we're not under the watchful eye of the wind or the flooding or whatever. It's where can we put people that homes have been devastated. So I throw this out to this group of, if you belong to a church or an association or anything that we could go in and set up shelters after the fact to clear out the schools, let the schools get back teaching the young ones their schooling, and the superintendent can jump in all the issues that creates of prolonging the opening of the schools. So we're trying to look at other places that we can have post storm sheltering too. And you're right, it would take hundreds of millions to build something.
And Steve, I think it's because this is, I mean, we're not uniquely challenged by this. You know, we are all in the state of Florida, and we are on the coastal communities, we are all challenged by this. So we need to look at this on a statewide level, see where the funding opportunities are. You know, and I think it will help us if Charlotte County, quite frankly, gets their own public shelter, because we know they don't have any, and that's why they show up in ours.
Right.
But we need to continue to follow this, all of us, on a statewide basis, to make sure that we are, you know, taking advantage of whatever funding opportunities there are, because this is going to continue to be a challenge for us.
And along those lines, Commissioner, we just talked to our state coordinator from Department of Emergency Management. We do have, as you know, Manatee County is the northern border of what's called Region 6 and goes south, but Region 4 is the Tampa Bay area, so we're really in two regions. And so we're involved in work groups of a regional-wide, or really west coast of Florida-wide evacuation plans. And we've had several meetings on that, because even if they're passing through, let's face it, on any given day, Mayor Bryant will say, look out the front door here, what the traffic is on any given day. What about those other 300,000 people now trying to get out of town? And it's just not our 300,000, it's the 400 or 500 from Sarasota and so forth coming north. So a lot of things that we're having to work together regionally wide too.
Wayne?
Steve, I'm assuming that service animals, or people with service animals are supposed to go to the pet shelters? 'Cause
Yeah.
I think there were some,
The service animals can go basically anywhere they need to or want to, so it
Okay.
doesn't need to be, as long as they're bona fide service animals.
okay. Yeah, and to get that distinction, all you have to do is ask, pretty much, and you got it. So
Yeah.
we're seeing more and more of those around, and I just want to know.
Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to know, will the
Can't do
public
that.
know? I can't do that?
No.
Talk into the mic, sir.
I can project. Will the public know when the sites will be phased in with an effort to avoid some community members going to one site and a site within a few blocks of their house may be open maybe a few hours later?
Yeah,
Will there
what
be a
we-
schedule on when the sites will be phased in if there's a hurricane?
We try to predict this as the storm's coming in, because we have at least 4 different conference calls, and again, we're talking about a hurricane coming, 4 different conference calls a day between National Weather, the state, Hurricane Center. So we're getting good intelligence coming in of the impact of the storm, the direction of the storm, and all that. So we're trying to predict, is it, because with like Hurricane Irma, 3 or 4 days out, we were looking at a 15-foot surge of water coming in because the storm was going to be off the coast. As it started going over towards to the east, we didn't get that bad right-hand part of the storm, so we weren't impacted real bad. But what I'm saying is we're trying to, and it is a prediction of how bad it's going to be and where it's going to come in, because if it was a Category 4 or 5, a number of these schools can't even be used if it's Category 4 or 5. There's a number of them that go down that we have to look at too. So we're trying to, if you look at the list, we always try to have one north side, one east side, and one west side to start out. And then through our predictions, lack of a better word, is looking at, okay, we're expecting this amount of people to have to leave their homes. What would be the next, because you can't staff between the school board and other volunteers, you can't open the shelter up in a couple hours. So you know it's going to be a 12 to 24 to 36 hour prediction of what's next going to be on the list. So we're trying to do that with minimizing the capital outlay of staffing, supplies, and things like that too. So I hope that helped.
Brian?
Chief, thank you for the information. My concern is that we have as I've been told, 380,000 people in the county, and 70,000 or more live north of the river. When the bridge is closed because of high winds, we have, 5 shelters north of the river. Is that an adequate number? Because I don't see any of them in Palmetto. They're all pretty well east. So,
Well, the shelters are the way the buildings are built. So it's just because it's a school, it's not necessarily a hardened school. So this is, if I'm, Sally, you could probably, 3 of the new schools, 1 of the 3 is a shelter. It's how they're built rather than a school. Not every school can be a shelter.
right.
So it takes, yeah, go.
Most of the areas in Palmetto are in a major surge zone, so they won't even be used at all. At one point, we did have Lincoln on there. We had to remove them because when the surge maps changed a couple years ago by state, and the state levels changed, we had to remove that. So it all depends on that. But our schools to the east are obviously the safest and away from the water.
Well, I understand that, but in the future, when we start either designing and building new schools or new shelters, or looking for new shelters, I would like to see you pay some attention to closer into the proximity of the town of Palmetto. You know, there's 15,000 people right there, so to get them across the river to shelters, especially when the winds come in, that, you know, you're talking 12 to 24 hours for a shelter to even open. You just can't expect them all to jump on the interstate and move either.
And I don't know what's on the drawing board. I don't know if the superintendent can talk about any futuristic schools up north side or not. Superintendent, you want to chime in on any future growth?
Well, the new Barbara Harvey Elementary School will be a shelter. Even though the high school, which is also north of the river, was not designated as a shelter, it certainly can serve as a host evacuation center. So both of those could be utilized if need be. So once they come online, they will be added to the list.
Because
Thank you.
you're not planning on building any more, and I don't want to speak out of line,
Not in the
inside the city of
immediate-
Palmetto.
Not in the immediate future. You know, we never know how things change over time, but not in the next 5 years. But we do have those 2 added, which are north of the river, that would serve what you're asking for.
And last thing, I did want to welcome Sherry, since this is her first COG meeting.
Okay. I have one question, Steve. Have you had some conversations with IMG? Because we know that they, on any given day, have 3,000 to 4,000 students there that, you know, and they're in an A zone, so they're going to be evacuated. They could pretty much consume. Right.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, you-
so, and I think, if I remember last year, we were going to have some conversations with them as to,
Yeah, we've been in conversations, like the superintendent said, and I don't, they have worked with the school board on occupying, because I think they have somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 kids there, and a majority of them are from out of country. So that's a huge thing. We talked to them last year. It was great the school board could work with them for immediate needs, but we also had them start working on plans of being able to evacuate to the center part of the state or East Coast. But again, moving 3,000 and 4,000 people at once is a great undertaking too. So something local is definitely, because the way their campus is laid out is they're in several different levels. And so obviously they want to err to caution too. So thank you, school board, for working with them on that.
One thing that we need to consider, from my time on the board at University of South Florida System, you know, where you have thousands of students in dormitories, as part of their residency, they have to document what their hurricane evacuation plan is, and it's only at a last resort that they go to local shelters. So we may want to consider that, because the universities are required in their dormitory contracts that the students have to have a plan where they're going to go to a friend's, you know, and it's all documented. And so it's not relying on, you know, 5,000 kids showing up at our shelter. So as part of that conversation, you might want to just include what the universities and the colleges have.
We
with
are,
regard-
not to interrupt you, there's a group, I believe it's called the Cross College Alliance.
Right.
And we've been working with them, and I'm sure I'm going to miss some, but New College, USF, State College of Florida, Ringling Art Museum. Actually, Chairman, IMG's now been invited to participate in that group, and emergency management of both Sarasota and Manatee counties. And we meet quarterly to address all those issues. And right now, if I'm not mistaken, New College is the only one that has dormitories at the moment. I understand without other colleges are looking at building dormitories, but if you look at any of those schools, where are they located? Right by Sarasota Bay, so we do have to worry about where those students go. But we're working with the Cross College Alliance, emergency management across both counties in addressing those issues.
Okay, any other questions? Mike, state your name. Not Mike, Jonathan.
Jonathan Davis, City of Palmetto. At the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, we had a after process on the hurricane, and the most things that was brought up was people evacuating that don't have to evacuate. And we need to get that information out to the people in the area that do not have to evacuate, that they're safe at that area. So that was one of the main things that came out of that group.
Right, and if I'm taking too long, Chairman, just throw something at me, but
I think
two
this is
things that
fairly important,
we're
so
trying
I'll
to
give
do
you
to.
a latitude.
We're doing is, we've been honored this year, this summer, with a college intern into emergency management. They're going to work with us on community outreach of increasing that. Currently, we're working with our Nick Azaris, our public information officer. We've done some short videos on that issue too, and I go back to when to and when not to evacuate. And that is one of the biggest things that we currently are going to do. And as our intern comes on, address that. That's a huge issue that there's only a give take the numbers 35,000 spaces for people in shelters in Manatee County if we used every single inch. I think that's a round number, isn't it, Sally? So look at the population we have and only 35,000. We can't have that. So we are addressing that. That was a big lesson learned.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Betsy?
And thank you, Steve, for that, because that is a difference of the situation than we were in previously with these updated coastal evacuation maps. So we are in a deficiency mode where we weren't previously, and that does change the requirements. When you go to build schools, they have to be built as shelters now, where before this little technicality change, they didn't. So it is important that we continue to look at that as we move forward. I do want to just congratulate Steve. We're thrilled to have you as our permanent emergency manager, doing an excellent job, so I just want to
Thank you, ma'am.
congratulate you.
Appreciate that.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I don't, bless you.
I'll be around for a little bit. I'm going to try to stay to the end because I have another program tonight at 7. So if you want an individual question later on, grab me. Most of you have my email and my number, so give me a call. We're here to help you. And I got to say, as I was mentioning earlier, we as Manatee County, all of you in this room should be very proud of how we all work together, because I can tell you that that's not the case in other areas. I can tell you that as a fact. I've seen it over and over again, and this is what happens. An hour before this meeting, I see about a half a dozen people, several fire chiefs and utilities and public works working on other issues. So all of you should be complimented on how we all, and I say we all, work together and come together. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve and Sally. Great presentation, and again, very timely. We're, whatever, 4 months away from when we start up our hurricane watch, I guess, again. The next item on the agenda is the collaboration of county government, cities, school boards to identify cost-saving opportunities and avoid redundancies. And this is Commissioner Servia's item, so she'll lead us.
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Steve, for your exiting comments about saying how well we all work together, because that is the spirit that I bring this topic forward to everyone, and that is, I don't know if it's ever been explored before. If it has, you can tell me here, but as a new commissioner, one of the things that I talk to people about are ways to collaborate on purchasing items that different cities, the county, and the school district may need. For example, if you take the example of copy paper, okay? Do we all need our own copy paper contract? But is there an opportunity for items of technology or, things that we all use to collaborate through a procurement process as a pilot program and just try and see if there's an advantage? Is there an opportunity to save some taxpayer money?
Okay, Carol?
Maybe this is an advantage or disadvantage of being around a long time, and some of the others here can probably attest to that. There is a rule, and I used it when I was on the islands to piggyback on the county, et cetera, to purchase. It's called piggybacking. I don't know what the official name is, right, everybody? All of us little, small local governments know about it. And as long as somebody has gone out for an RFP or whatever you want to call, and it's what you're looking for in your government, you can piggyback on their contract without having to go out for bid and do all that. So I didn't really understand what this was for, but there is a mechanism. Maybe some of the newer commissioners have forgotten about it, and I'm sure there's got to be an attorney here. Mickey, I'm sure we still have that like we use it from other counties and various issues. I know in Holmes Beach, Carol's nodding her head, we've used it for years, and we used to piggyback with the county all the time. So maybe if Mickey could clarify that, I may be wrong.
Piggybacking is a concept that is alive and well
Okay.
as among local governments in the state of Florida. Manatee County piggybacks on occasion with other local governments and vice versa. I would suggest a practical, let me make a practical suggestion in pursuit of Commissioner Servia's suggestion, and that would be that the purchasing officials from each local government get together with their own little summit. Your purchasing officials are experts in these subject areas. And the purchasing officials get together and exchange some ideas on, on what would work and what would not work as among the local governments, at least within Manatee County. And I would suggest that would be a good jumpstart.
Mr. Chair, for those of us that are from small governments, they don't have purchasing officials. Usually the Public Works Director orders what he wants and stuff. Maybe the mayors would be in the smaller governments, I'm not sure. But just so you know, it's not like us.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, in recognition that some of the smaller cities may not have purchasing officials, somebody within that government is primarily responsible for purchasing.
Right, right.
Thank you. I would tell you, I looked around for one of our finance people to give you a good explanation, but there are also purchasing policies that are incorporated into each entity, each governmental entity. There's also state contracts, whereas whatever agency can go there, they can seek the prices for the different automobiles or different things. Really, a lot of that has already been incorporated with what finance does. And I would tell you that there is a Florida Governmental Officers Association, and they all do meet together and try to come up with some best practices, and they bring those back to each governmental agency. So I tell you, just to say that most of that is already being incorporated, and in our case, we do have a purchasing agent at the city and an assistant, because with anything that goes out to bid, it's required that they meet certain criteria. There's purchasing levels that are in that purchasing policy for each particular agency. So I would tell you a good start would maybe be to sit down and have a conversation with one of your finance people, and then, you know, if you want to bring this back. But I think it's not a bad idea for any new government official to get that, just a little 101 for finance. So I would suggest that.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's comments. And I just think it's always a good idea to revisit it. You know, even annually, things change, people change, policies change, and I'm just looking for a way that we can all work together when there's an opportunity to save some money. Thank you.
I'll just add, I think, you know, so we can close the loop here a little bit. I would suggest that we, you know, we'll look to Sherry to maybe help us, since I guess the county's the biggest entity here, and maybe she can come back and report to us, you know, as, oh, the school board, that's right, they have all the money. Maybe we should put it in charge of them. I forgot.
They have all the money.
But I'm going to ask Sherry if she would just kind of coordinate that either with John Osborne or somebody, and then reach out to some of the other municipalities and the school board and just get back to us maybe at the next meeting or something with a quick summary as to whether it, you know, there's any synergies there that can be accomplished, and if not, you know, we can put it to sleep. Scott.
Scott Hopes of the school board. I think one area that may not have been originally considered, but I know a number of the commissioners and I've been having conversations, and it would be around coordinating transportation. As school choice continues to expand, we have parents asking for hubs, and the county has a transit system. We have a transit system. And perhaps that's one way that we could have a coordination of maybe we can capitalize on the county's bus system for some of these hubs. And then we can, and that will take a lot of vehicles off the road if we're able to kind of coordinate it. Because I watch every day, county buses cross school buses, and we've got buses going in the same direction, and it's not yet coordinated. And I think that would be an area to collaborate to see how we can coordinate how we move people around the county to the various, you know, schools of choice and the ACE program and things like that, to get, maybe use the county system to get students from south of the river up to Palmetto High School. But that would be an area of coordination that I don't think we've yet explored how we can capitalize on that. Thank you.
Any other? I think that's a great idea. Betsy.
While Betsy's getting the microphone, I'll just say thank you, Dr. Hopes, because that is my number 5 on the agenda.
Yeah, and I saw Misty smiling because that is number 5 on the agenda, and I really think it's important to talk about that. As you know, we, our transit division does work with the College Alliance to be able to provide them with passes that the schools pay for, which I think does help quite a bit for those folks to, and you know, that younger group is willing to take the bus. It's kind of uniquely, you know, group that is willing to take mass transit. But we do, again, just since we're rules people, we know that we have limits that we can utilize our public transportation because of the way it's funded through the federal government. You know, we can't provide direct service to someone because that isn't what the public transit system is. I know, for example, when we had the rowing, the World Rowing, we wanted to be able to provide transit. Well, we couldn't. We couldn't have that kind of dedicated route for people that were here to take advantage of that. So it's something that certainly we could get our transportation folks together again to discuss, but you know, there's those rules, unfortunately, that we have to make sure we comply with so we continue to get that federal dollar to fund our transportation that is mostly funded by taxpayers.
Okay, Carol?
I have a little 5- and 8-year-old grandkids. I mean, and I would not feel comfortable having my little 5- or 8-year-old getting on the public system versus a school bus To me, that's a lot different. I feel like on a school bus, you're more protected. It's all the kids, and it's not mixed with adults and people going to work and stuff like that. I know it's something, it's a great idea. Well, you didn't say that. Maybe high school would be a different thing, but yeah. But I definitely, we'd have to look at that and figure out a more efficient way. And then if we're going to help, then we all need to share in the cost, because that's where it sucks all of our pockets out. Only 18% of our collection rate covers our transit, only 18%, I think. So our revenue for our fares.
Any other comments at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that item and move on to item number 4, the Accord. Wayne or Shirley leading that?
Would you like to speak on this? You want me to
You
start?
can
or-
start.
Okay. This is an agreement between the county and the cities during a very contentious time in our relationship. We had a singular county commissioner who was really upset about the way things were going. We had to be perfectly honest and get it on the table. So we agreed, 3 of us got together and wrote the accord. And it was annexation issues or other issues that came up. The cities and the counties would get together. Mr. Gallo served on the board of that, and then we would decide what to do. We quite honestly think that there's really no need for the accord anymore. We haven't met in a couple of years. And we're just thinking if this thing doesn't work anymore or isn't needed anymore, why don't we drop it? And then we move forward.
Just to add on to that, so much of the reason that it was really written has been accomplished. And so, you know, whether it's by statute, the 9/11 system accomplished, sales tax, that's accomplished, dispute resolution, that's Chapter 164. So much of it has already been accomplished. There doesn't seem to be a need for it. And quite frankly, I don't really need for our commissioner to come back from a JPC meeting just to say, well, everybody feels pretty good. They're all doing well. So, because that's the only report that we've been getting back from the JPC is just, you know, everybody's doing okay, because that's about all they've had to discuss as far as the reports I've gotten back. So, you know, is it critical that we get rid of it? No, but it is. When we talk about redundancy, that's a redundancy. I think having the Council of Government meetings has been beneficial, but I do think that that's a waste of time sending each of our board members to go to something just to find out the health conditions of the rest of them.
Yeah.
Betsy?
Yeah, as somebody who has been affected by the accord in the past, both in the public and private sector, I have talked also, I talked with Larry Bussell today at Kiwanis a little bit about this. He asked me what was going on, had a discussion with him. I've talked to Cliff Walters, who was very instrumental in helping with the accord. And it was a way to resolve some very contentious issues that I probably was involved on the private side, quite frankly, at the time. And it may have had its place then, but I will tell you, trying to operate under it, it's very confusing. I remember going to a meeting at the city of Bradenton in regards to an annexation, and it was so unclear what exactly we were supposed to do. It isn't, you know, it was written as a kind of a goodwill document in many ways, that we would discuss things, but we have laws that we have to follow. So it doesn't make sense to have this kind of feel-good document out there, and we don't know how to operate under it because it doesn't have those kind of regulations in it. It made it confusing for me to know what was my role representing the county in the accord and an annexation petition that I know what the law says, but the accord was just kind of throwing a little curve into it. So I certainly don't have any problem with getting rid of it. I think it served its purpose. I would like to thank everyone that was, you know, involved in that resolution. I think Cliff did a great job and, you know, mediating that issue and coming. And quite frankly, you know, we all know the goal was to try to, you know, force charter government at the time. And this was a way to offset the, you know, moving down that road. And I'm still in favor of not having charter government. So I just don't think we need an accord. I think we can continue to work together, but, you know, who knows what will come up in the future. And at that time, we have this organization, and I have faith that we can all work together to resolve whatever issues we have.
Carol?
2009? When did we do the accord? Does anybody know?
I can answer that question,
And-
Mr. Chair. The bulk of the signatures on the accord, give me just a second. Uh,
2002?
It
Okay,
was,
thank you.
it was 2002, that's correct. Pretty much the bulk of the signatures were in the spring of 2002.
So, okay, so, and Mayor and I were in office then, John Chappie, and I think Mayor, George, you were in office then, and definitely Brian. But, and it was about the annexation of Harbor Isles. Harbor Isle. That's what it was about, and,
And the
It
school
was-
board was also a signatory, by the way.
and the
Yes.
county threatened us to charter, they decided that maybe they consider being a charter government, but then they included the cities without even talking to us. So we were actually in here having a knockdown, drag-out argument with everybody about this, and Cliff Walters was our mediator, and I was gonna try to call him and ask him to come today, because I didn't know how bad this would be, but I think it's gonna be a good day. But we met after, we asked our district county commissioner to meet with us in the lobby over there, and asked her, and we just said, you represent all the cities here. John Chappie's smiling, he knows. You represent all of us, and we do not support this. And our district commissioner said, I support the whole county, and walked away. So that's why the accord was formed, because the cities were not having their voices heard as a chartered government, and the county was trying to strong-arm us. So a lot of good things happened out of it. We got this, and I think there's a lot more dialogue with the cities. You guys are not afraid to contact any of us. I think we're more engaging than we used to be. So I don't think there's a need for it anymore from somebody that was there since day one. Gene was there too.
Mr. Gallagher?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not used to being around a microphone. I guess it's working. Okay, yeah, it's working. I'm certainly opposed to it existing, and to be very blunt, the reason why the accord came in was because of one county commissioner who was bound and determined to do what he wanted to do to the cities, to the development out on Manatee Avenue West. The JPC meetings that we have had have been a total joke. Chairman, that I know what was said before the meetings and after the meetings. 9 out of 10 people that were involved said, I don't care what the city of Braden does, or I don't care what the city of Palmetto does. That's your government. Do what you want to do. And I'm glad that our mayor and the mayor of Palmetto have taken the position that they have, because it is time. It's just a waste of time, and it's time to see it walk on down the road, and maybe it can end up in one of the local newspapers that happen to be on the internet that you might read.
Working here, okay. I get, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
My only question is, how do we do away with this?
Right out your mouth. That's what I was just gonna ask. I don't think we can make any decisions here today, but, speaking, I guess, on behalf of the county commissioners, I would put this on our next agenda and ask that we get a vote on it sounds like everybody's kind of has a consensus of getting rid of it, and maybe you all in your different, can put it on your agendas, and then we will, I don't know, maybe, appoint Mr. Palmer to figure out how to legally undo it and terminate it.
We can do that.
Type of thing, without a lot of billable hours, you just. Yes, Carol.
Just real quick, Holmes Beach, Judy, I mean, some of the commissioners are new, and just so you know the history, Judy's family founded Holmes Beach, so she probably knows more than most of us, but what happened, and we sued the city of Bradenton, the island cities and the county sued the city of Bradenton about this project. So that went through the right process. But then, the other idea was our county commissioner trying to charter us so that this could never happen again. So you can still go through processes with various cities, but maybe this way is outdated.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, thank you for bringing that up, the mayors. Next item up is roadway capacity, and that's Commissioner Servia.
Okay, thank you. So mic on, thank you. And thank you for the preview, Dr. Hopes. So I know we'll all agree that traffic is something that we hear from constituents every day. It's the biggest problem that I hear about. And in the last few months, while talking in detail with the people in South County, we were looking for ways to maybe help with the congestion. And the school board kept coming up, because there are so many cars on the roadways when people are taking their kids to school. So we all noticed during spring break, the traffic was much, much better. And so I did some research, and I found that there are some school districts that provide incentives to their employees to work near the schools that they, to work in the schools that were in the neighborhoods where they live. And so I didn't know if the school board had ever thought about that idea, but that might be something worth considering. Instead of, living in East County and driving to West County to go to work or vice versa, there may be an opportunity there. Also, I think the current standard is school buses are available for kids that live more than 2 miles away from the schools. And as someone who lived exactly 2 miles away from the high school, we drove all of our kids to school every day. So is there an opportunity to look at maybe reducing that to 1.5 miles? Has anyone thought about that, or 1 mile? And I know that requires more buses and more bus drivers, and it's just some ideas I'm throwing out there that maybe we could think about and would help all of us. The county is constantly building and widening roads, and if there's a way to slow that pace down, I know it would be appreciated by everyone. So that's why I brought it up today, to hear if anybody thought that those ideas may be good.
Well, we could probably start by zoning our children to go to the schools that are closest to them, since we have a lot more students than we have staff. And I do know that the board, we've had these conversations. I think at our next meeting, our next workshop, our transportation department has been charged with presenting to the board actions that they can take to reduce the demands on the transportation system. I think with the 3 new schools being opened and we've redistricted attendance zones in parts of the county, I know the superintendent and I've had conversations about this next year, taking a deeper dive in looking at how the attendance zones are assigned now that we've got all the growth, out east. And I don't know when we have redistricted the entire county for attendance zones, but I think it's been a long time. And so those are things that we're looking at. And what I had brought up is specifically around our high school programs, that like the ACE program at Palmetto, where we have a lot of people that are driving one student or to those schools, and we have students who would like to attend the program. And that's where I thought we could coordinate with the transit system to look at where you currently have routes where students in Lakewood Ranch could utilize, or even down near Southeast High School, could utilize the county system to get up into Palmetto. And then with the Palmetto, the Parish Community High School, which is an incredible campus if you haven't been there since the buildings have come up, I'm expecting that there will be a number of students that are down south of the river that are going to want a choice up to that school for some of those programs. And it would be nice to look at existing county transit routes are modifying those routes so we could create a hub type of, a hub and spoke system where those high school students can utilize the county transportation system to get closer to those schools rather than we have all these, you know, individual vehicles driving around. But I think one of the things that I would like us to look at is how we create community-centric schools so that we're not busing students from a school that's 1.5 miles from where they live to one that's 6 miles from where they live. And I think that can reduce some of that congestion.
Betsy?
This is a great topic. It's not anecdotal. We had the Central Manatee Network analysis that showed that we have a much higher percentage of kids that don't take the bus than anywhere else. We were very, very low on the number of kids that actually take the bus, and there's numerous reasons for that. In listening to the idea, we know school choice is only going to become bigger and bigger. The state right now, precludes us from even doing the regulations. Back when my kids were in school, you couldn't choice out into certain schools. Well, now the state says you have to be able to go to any school, right, anywhere. You have to have that right. So that is the reality. The reality also is we don't have bus service to Parrish. So you're not going to take a bus to Parrish, not a county bus, right? Priscilla, there's no bus service that goes to Parrish today. So it's maybe a good idea, but this is something that certainly we need to continue to talk about. But why don't people have their kids get on the bus? What is the problem? What is the perception? That it's not safe? But yeah, you certainly can tell when school is not in session. Hear it from everyone. So it is an issue. We know that. We've got to talk about how to solve that. But we need to probably continue to have that. I thank you for putting this on the agenda. I think it'd be great to tell kids they have to take the bus, but I know that's probably not realistic either.
There are communities who do that.
By
the way, that have mandatory.
Yeah,
ride the bus.
Again, we're not unique in this situation, but we know it's a big challenge. I know it's a big challenge to find school bus drivers. It's a tough thing, but we do need to continue to work on that. So.
Thank you. And so I agree, I'd like to see us not just leave this meeting today, but continue to work on it. And as I said, even the employees, if there was an incentive that the school district could offer, if the employees of the schools would try and work in the areas where they live, that would help a great deal too. And as far as bus system transit to Parrish, I know we don't have that yet, but we could certainly put together a carpool or van pool. There are, T-BARTA does that, and there are federal and state dollars available for programs like that. Having just come off the MPO weekend educational summit in Orlando. So I'm volunteering my time to help discuss that problem with anyone who is willing. And yeah, I think it could help us. Thank you all for listening.
We are having a workshop on next Tuesday, as a matter of fact, because we do know transportation is a problem. So if you do have a meeting with entities coming, I would like the school board to be at the table if you want, because we do need to make our transportation more efficient. But a lot of the problems we have are the same problems you do. We receive a little over $7 million for transportation funding. It cost us over 14. And that's where it is right now with eliminating the 2-mile radius. But I will tell you that some of our attendance pockets have been designed a long time ago. And some of the things, when you look on the map, really just doesn't make any sense. We're taking people from Palmetto and we're sending them to Stewart. into Palmasola. And that, yes, ma'am, because somebody drew it up that way 50 years ago. So some of our pockets were designed a long time ago, and it's really not efficient or applicable today. And we've seen that. We have about 5 areas that we do think if we clean some of this up, it will help. So the transportation department is charged with what are things that we can control, that we can fix to make it better. And it does take a little time to put it in place, because right now we're identifying the problems. We definitely have to go through our process with communicating with parents and getting input and so forth. So it won't be done immediately, but we have identified some things that we will bring to the table that we will clean up and we will make better. So we'll do what we can, but our goal is to make transportation more efficient, so maybe more people do want to ride the bus. If they're not timely, that is a factor. So there are many things that we are working on to fix it, but thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Cynthia. That
Chairman,
this
may I-
should be a good workshop for you to attend on behalf of the county commission and hear what they have to say.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to do that. And just one more thing, I was going to add, when I went to school, you could only drive your car to school if you were a senior. And now everybody can drive their car to school. So I don't know, maybe times have changed and you have work, after school work assignments and stuff like that, sports, but that may be another thing to consider. Thank you.
Mayor Poston?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In asking for the transportation meeting between Bradenton, Palmetto, and the county, we'd love to talk with you guys, but let us do that one first. You're having a workshop on that, so you may have some information to bring us, and we may have some information to do you. So I'd like to separate that, but we will get back with you.
Anybody else? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item 7, drug education in the classroom. Commissioner Servias.
All right, and I apologize for adding all these things, but thank you all for indulging me. So in my district, well, everywhere, there is a drug problem, and it's all starting with our young people, obviously, and it's when they come to be adults, it's costing us in many different ways in society. So I've been working with Melissa Larkin Skinner over at Centerstone. I've worked with Mary Ruiz, and I've done a lot of research with both of them, and it seems that the answer is drug prevention education. And we used to have a lot of that in the school system, and now we do offer it, is my understanding, that there is time offered for drug prevention education. It is my understanding that it's at the discretion of the principal. Whether or not he's going to allow it, that may or may not be true. I see Cindy shaking her head, so you can fill me in on what's correct. But I'd like to suggest that if there's a way that we can bring that type of education into the curriculum, and I understand the state guidelines and the number of hours are limited, and I understand all the pressures that the school district is under for educating our children, but it seems that in my research, it seems the piece that's missing is the character building of our children. Because when we do character building and drug prevention and all of those skills, it allows them to make decisions that where they aren't being so, falling under peer pressure at such a large extent. I've looked into different communities. There are different programs being offered, even for different populations, to get those messages to our kids. And I know some of this is going to be very appropriate at the state level. We're going to need some changes there. But I just want at the local level that we're all still talking about it and presenting a unified front and looking for ways to bring this type of education back into our classroom. So I think it's going to help our whole community. So those are my comments.
I just like to ask Mrs. Saunders, What about drug-free Manatee? Aren't they integrally involved with the school system now? Because I know we work with them, our police department works with them, and I believe the sheriff's office works with them.
Sure. Yes, we have a couple of things. We have some outside organizations that partner with us that come in and provide those services in our middle and high school. But in addition, every child has to have a HOPE credit to graduate. And most freshmen take it when they enter high school. But that is the curriculum that the state requires that does embed drug prevention. So there is a course that does provide that in addition to outside organizations partnering. So it might be that some of what you were saying where some of the volunteers might not be in every school, there still is a course of curriculum that is provided for every student. But we do have drug-free Manatee, and It's Your Choice in a number of outside entities that do come in and help with us. But obviously, we need more. You know.
I don't think you could ever have
Enough,
enough to
yes.
meet the demand that we're living with today.
I think the county commission should weigh in on it, have a county-wide.
Okay, moving right along, Scott. Anybody have any, Gina, do you have some? Oh, okay, I thought you had given me a thumbs up, okay. Okay, well,
Mr. Chairman, if I could just conclude by saying that maybe our board can work with the Children's Services Advisory Board to hear what their objectives are for this coming year and make sure prevention is at the top of the list. I know that they are helping in the schools. And while I know a number of the schools have counselors in the schools, our children are needing counseling services when schools are closed. So I just want to, continue that partnership that we have locally here with our mental health providers and acknowledge that it's something that we all need to continue to work on.
okay. Carol?
I wasn't going to say anything, but you mentioned the children's services, and we do have not a policy, a plan. And our plan has been changed to third grade reading. The programs, is that what our most current is, Sherry? And a lot of this stuff is, what we're talking about is with the school board. I would like them to come back and, educate us, because some of us aren't as familiar with the school board as Misty is, as far as what you guys are doing. But we have a plan for a children's services tax that's gonna, this is our second year, and it's actually having outcomes that are positive. And I wouldn't want to make that commitment here today that that's what I would support right now. And I would ask Sherry, is it third level?
No,
Third
Mr.
grade?
Chairman, members of the board.
Third grade level.
The Children's Services Advisory Board is reviewing applications at this time for proposals that have been submitted. There is an annual plan requirement, comes before the board and was adopted in January. One of 4 areas of interest is in the grade level reading, but there are other programs that address drug prevention, mental health. Gina Messenger is your school board member on that board, and she's nodding because she's reviewing those. And that summary comes before the board in August when you are reviewing the adoption of your budget, and we can clarify what programs address those. Additionally, I believe in your legislative platform this year, you supported the concept of having drug education continued funded through the school district. Yeah. Thank you.
Or she just say it all for you?
She said 95%. I was just going to say that the CSAB, I think that is something that we have discussed. I think that is one of the things that is in the forefront, along with mental health counseling and services outside of the school day. A lot of what you just hit on, I think, are our priorities and our focuses, and looking at the agencies that have come before already that we've been reviewing, that is a continual focus. So,
Guess seeing nobody else, it's again something that we'll need to be working on between all of us. Obviously a big concern for everybody in the county. So that does conclude our agenda items. So at this point, I'm going to open up for public comment. there's anybody behind me from the public that would like to come up? Is there anybody? I can't see behind me. Not yet. Okay, seeing nobody from the public, we will close public comment. Now we'll go on to comments. Anybody, any of the officials here have any comments? I know Mickey Palmer has one, and maybe he'd like to just lead it off. So.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is strictly for the benefit of my client, and so I figured I'd seize the opportunity while 6 of the 7 commissioners are here this afternoon. Brian Eiten in my office has tendered his resignation. The sheriff has stolen him away from us, and he will be in-house counsel for the Manatee Sheriff's Office. He'll be with us through the month of April, and so I just wanted to let the commissioners know that our classified ad appears in the Florida Bar News, the digital version, as of this afternoon, and so we are wasting no time in looking to replace Brian with a seasoned civil litigator, and so I just wanted to give you that brief update.
Good pick
Thank
by
you.
the sheriff.
Michelle is no longer with the sheriff, and Brian Eiten will be filling that empty slot.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to ask a naive question, because we have most of the cities represented here, but with all the legislation that's going on right now, there's not anything collective with the municipalities and the county that is doing anything that I see to resist all the taking away of the home rule regarding any planning or anything locally. And that's being taken away from every governmental entity here. And I just want to know why we're not doing something collectively to protect the residents in Manatee County, because I don't see that we're doing that. And with every day this moves forward and there's more and more, and I don't mean to be political, but this is protecting our citizens and with the home rule. And you know, I'm very concerned the more and more things are stripped away from us. You know, we talk about children and protecting our young people. Well, when it's so easy to be transitory now in residential areas with the Airbnbs, what is the registration for pedophiles? What is the time frame? Can they just go and stay in one of these Airbnbs and they're not going to have to register? And it draws that right into the local community, a neighborhood. So has that been addressed by anybody? That's a huge concern that we should all be up in arms about. And, you know, I'm sending that up, but I think collectively we should protect our children and our communities, and we're not doing that. So my soapbox.
I think we need to do something. I agree with you.
I know, because if you read a lot of these things that are coming out during this legislative session, and you are absolutely correct, you know, there is the continuous attack on home rule. It's just the way it is, and in various ways. But you do have the League of Cities opposing it, and you have the Florida Association of Counties. Now, whether or not you have something that blends the two, that I'm not aware of. But I do know the League of Cities has taken a strong stance against it, just from what I've read. I don't participate necessarily on either one of those, but I do know from reading that the Florida Association of Counties is opposing it and the League of Cities is. You know, I don't know if you want to do something as us as a collective, but.
Could I speak? Sure. I think it's critical that we take some measures to do something about it, because, you know, if you do nothing, you're accepting what's being handed down to us. Right. And I don't care what other groups are doing it. I think we have loud voices, and we should do something collectively. What else is this meeting for than to protect our young people and our neighborhoods? Because that's being stolen away from us with each piece of legislation that moves forward. Every day I read all these bills that are moving through the two houses, and I'm devastated, and I mourn for the future, to actually have a neighborhood, because now we have commercial that's right in the middle of all the neighborhoods with no control. There's no commercial, there's no enforcement for parking, There's no enforcement. They don't have to be ADA. There's not the same requirements for any of these that they have in the commercial areas. They don't have those same, to my knowledge, not the same inspections. So, you know, and what is the registration period for pedophiles? I've not heard that anywhere. So, and just, you know, any neighborhood, what is it? I would like for that to be answered. But we need to take some step collectively to send our voice to Tallahassee that we've had enough.
Okay, Mayor Murphy?
The Florida League of Cities is addressing just that concern, as you stated it, along with our lobbyists. We have a lobbyist in Tallahassee. The city of Holmes Beach does. The city of Bradenton Beach does as well. Each week they get together. Last year we successfully destroyed the attempt at the disrupting our ability to regulate vacation rentals by adding on a stipulation in the Senate that specifically about sexual predators, that it had to be regulated, and so Airbnb and VRBO ran from that. It killed the bill in the Senate. Unfortunately, it was at the very last minute that it got killed. This year, we've got a different strategy. But they do meet every week, and I get an update on the strategy as to where we're going, what's headed, and I know that the other two mayors on the island do as well. We're up to speed on it in terms of that. But there's other issues with home rule that are
And the
also-
zoning?
If you look at the Bert Harris bill that's pending, that's another usurping of the city's ability to regulate and
And the
control and
county.
do things, not just the city, but the county as well.
Yeah.
So your point's very good, but I think part of this is being done informally with the Florida League of Cities, and I'm very satisfied with that process as it goes. I wouldn't want to take that away from, because they're right at the fire, right where it's happening.
My point is, I just want to make it stronger. Yes. From all the different governmental entities. Here.
From what I'm hearing, the letter writing, even if it's emails, they're getting just bombarded with them. I think it helps if you get in a car and you drive up there. I know Jim was there. Thank you. He's our liaison for, our legislative liaison, so he just got back from Tallahassee. But what's so bad about this bill is we have a VRC that allows us right now to require occupancy limits. This bill, what it's saying is you can't regulate this rental any differently than you would as a home in that district. Well, how do you limit occupancy in somebody's home? You know, so it's basically stripping every single thing we have away, and so now you've got someone raising a family next to a house that can pack 40 people if they want. And the noise and everything comes with that, and the trash and the parking and up and down. So it is bad. And I can't even believe they would even consider it. But, you know, people who are strong property right advocates seem to be doing just that. So what we're urging our commissioners to do, and to work with our stakeholders, is a friendly ordinance. We're not trying to stop the onslaught of vacation rentals. We're trying to make it easy for them to work with us, to obtain their certificate, not try to make it too costly that it's a burden to them, but to try to bring them on our team, because in the end, it's better for the, what we've decided is it's actually better for the management companies to play along than be overtaken by the great big conglomerates like the Airbnbs that want to do it. So we're really working hand in hand with them to show them safety should be an issue. You know, clean pools should be an issue. You know, you should care about that kind of stuff. So we are actively working. Again, Florida League of Cities is doing a tremendous job. We have a great lobbyist. She's working. We've invested in her again this year. And Jim, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, if I could. Jim Keem, City of Holmes Beach. Yeah, I was just in Tallahassee last week, and I guess just my personal observation, being there as a group, Florida League of Cities and Minnesota League of Cities, and visiting as a group our local legislators and discussing these matters to them. First, we had the venue, we had their attention. I think we were able to bring some new information to them. I think this was a more effective way than email, so I appreciate the representatives at least putting this out on the table. How do we work together to raise the level of our voices? You know, it's wonderful when we had that week, those few days, and we were there, but it seems, you know, when we're away, the legislators are bound and determined, some of them, to move these agenda items ahead. Particularly troubling is all these preemption bills that are moving through the state legislature. It seems like every year we're faced with this. So again, I think it's worthy of having some discussion about how we do it. I don't know whether it's through a, you know, a mutual letter of understanding that you know, we support position of Florida League of Cities and so on, and the respective cities would sign on to that. That may, again, raise the volume a little bit, that it's just not, you know, one and two of us as individuals, but collectively as cities that we're trying to protect our citizens. Thank you.
You know, one of the things that is troubling to me is we as elected officials, we get this information on these bills. The average person I talk to in the course of a day has no idea what's happening around them. The public is not aware. Because, you know, I realize that. I go and speak to all the CDDs, and when I go to these different places, they're not aware of this. They're not aware of what their legislators are doing to them. So, and maybe that's part of it. We need to make the community aware of where this is going and what it's doing to them, the potential for it. You know, maybe that's some of it, but I would like to see us do something collectively, put our voices together and do something, because, you know, I don't want to just leave it at somebody else's door and for us to just not make the public aware and let this happen.
Okay, anybody else?
One other House bill that's up at this time is Senate Bill, Senate Bill 720, and then the House bill is up also, but it's dealing with the Burt Harris Act. And if we don't look at that one, we're gonna have serious problems, because it's limiting us tremendously more than what it is right now. So everybody needs to take a look at that. I know everybody gets these notices, so we need to take a look at that one too. And I think collectively, we should write a letter on those and sign it and send it up. It's gonna affect the school boards a lot too. So, then I have one real last thing I want to mention. Everybody knows the improvements that we've had at 9th Avenue and Manatee Avenue. We still have one problem. The right-hand turn turning west onto Manatee Avenue, the pedestrian way and the walkway there is not a good thing. We have that little jog, we can get around that, but it's creating a problem for the trucks, the public's trucks, the other vehicles, large trucks that have to turn right onto Manatee Avenue going south from 9th. So everybody, drive by there sometime. Try it, especially when you got a big truck sitting there. You can't do it. So I know that everybody, we have MPO representatives and everything. I'm not one of them. The mayor. It's so I just want, I don't think that it's any one entity that has made these changes. It may be just the state, but I think that we need to make sure that we all get together. If Bradenton wants that sidewalk that way, you know, folks, you got to take a look at it, because you can still back the pedestrians up and let them come down from a different angle. But the problem is that the vehicles right now are going to be a bigger accident-prone area out on that corner than anything you've got, and it's a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
just going back real quick to the mayor, she's talked and everybody goes, yeah, but I know we don't do action, but are we all at least in agreement? Because I don't like leaving something and then it'll be here next time. Are we in agreements that we all collectively write a letter that we adamantly oppose whatever's going through process now, and in conjunction with our individual lobbyists, like the mayor, like Mayor Murphy said, and then all 7 of us commissioners went up, and we were in their rooms, and some of us they couldn't fit us in, but we all stood outside. They know we came in force. So you're right. It's not just one commissioner. It makes more when you're all together. But then if we would all sign it, you'd have to bring it all to your individual cities, and they would sign it, and a master one go up. That's what she's trying to say. I think numbers, I strengthen numbers. Emails are fine, but when you have a formal letter and everybody sign in it, and I don't know, Mr. Chair, how we would do that. I mean, somebody would bring something up at a meeting if somebody wants to draft it, and then see if we all agree on signing it. I think Lombok Key, I think all of us agree. Sarasota, we're not going to get involved with Sarasota, but I think all the elected officials in Manatee County need to be on board with this.
Who do you want to send the letter to?
Our legislative body and the people that are running the bills. I was just reading on Fact what's going on now with the short-term rentals, and he was up there raising his fist on how dare we take people's property rights away, and they should be treated just like everybody else that rents a house. So I think, we should send it to our legislators, but mainly our Senate leaders and our respective area, people that represent us here for sure. But I'd leave it up to the mayors and the chair to see, but are we all in agreement that we need to do that? Because I just saw a bunch of heads nodding, but are we agreeing to do what Mayor Bryant suggests?
Well, I think, that there's definitely a consensus that, we'd like to keep some attention on some of these bills as they go through. I look around the room here and I think, well, between all of our cities and counties and school boards, we probably spend somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000 a year in lobbyists. So it seems to me that they ought to have some, responsibility back to us to make sure that these items get in front of the people that are the power brokers up there. I think, a unified letter, is great. It's just, who can we assign that? Which lobbyist wants to take that on and do it, and then just, circulate it around and get everybody to do it. But
I volunteer the city of Palmetto. It's really, really important, and we will see that it gets done. If it's the concurrence of this group, we will see that it gets done. I believe our city attorney is here, and we'll be glad to assist. So he'll be glad to assist, and we will pass it to the different entities. But we're going to be doing that post haste because it's critical that this goes up and our voices be heard. And I would also ask, thank you for bringing back closure for that, Carol, but what I would also ask is that people educate the public. The public needs to know and help take a stand.
I would
Because the
suggest we
average
also
person
get
doesn't.
that letter out to the newspapers.
Yes.
And get some,
And we all sign the original, right?
Yes, yeah.
And we
Okay,
all have to
anybody
put it
else
on
have
an
any
agenda.
other comments? Gene?
Mr. Bryant, I'd just like to ask you a question, because I think you have probably been around here as long as I have. Yes, sir. And it's an easy question to answer. Have you ever been able to tell FDOT what not to do?
You're right, Gene. It's very difficult, but I think that, again, if we go to FDOT en masse and we say, look, there is a problem here, take pictures. I've stood there on the opposite corner wanting to come north and watch trucks almost, daily they'll drive over that curb. Go look at the tire marks on there.
And we receive a lot of comments about that. But in fact, when you do talk to FDOT, they're gonna tell you that they know how to design it. They know what is safe. For instance, the entrance to Braden River Lakes, and these gentlemen to my left have heard this story. When it first was developed, it took me 5 years to get a traffic light at that intersection because they knew more than we did. And the only reason why we got it at that time, John McKay was Senate president, and he threatened them. And within a week, they started doing it. But I've never had any success. The thing that's going through with us now with the flyover or 27th Street East or what, talk all you want and tell them what you want. But at the end, they're going to do what they want to do.
Let's go to the next MPO meeting together and
I
stand
served on
there.
that MPO meeting, and it's a lot of waste of time for, as far as what FDOT's going to hear.
Well, it's
I rest my
dangerous.
case.
Anybody else? Mayor?
Shirley, when you write that letter, I do urge that you include the Bert Harris bill. The Florida League of Cities attorney told me that most Bert Harris bills tend to pass, and he doesn't know why, but he thought this one looked like it was written by the attorneys of all the Bert Harris lawsuits there are against Holmes Beach. It's a really bad bill for us. We've won two. We have some others lined up, and we're hoping they're going to dismiss. But yes, it is an unfriendly bill. The only other thing I had, and I hope this is the right place to bring it up, there's been every weekend, the past 3 weekends, I've been told, I've only witnessed one of it, but I've been told there was actually 3 in a row, parties at the Causeway, huge parties at the Causeway. They're Facebooked, they're sponsored. It blocks traffic leaving the island because it's such a big party. I mean, there are 3 rows of cars deep at that skinny causeway, and people are at a crawl because they're afraid they're going to hit somebody. They're throwing things across Manatee Avenue. They're running across the street. There's cops. There's FWC and boats. They rent a party raft with the slide right there off the beach. It's free food, free drinks. I thought the one time I drove by and saw it, it took us an hour to get off the island, which was just a very short distance, and I was like, God, I can't believe spring break there's traffic like this. Till I came up over the bridge and saw it, it's like, wow, that's what it is. As soon as we got past it, the traffic, picked back up, but it was over an hour getting off the island, and we already have congestion trying to get off the island about that time, 5, 6, this was about 6 o'clock at night. I thought, oh, well, what a fun party. But then I heard it happened the next 2 weekends, too. So that would, I think, since it's a sponsored event, require a special permit to make sure that they've got adequate parking, adequate police. And is that really the best place for such a party when it's in such a congested area anyway?
Spring break.
I sent it to Carol.
I'll send you who sponsors it, but I'm sending them the app.
Supposedly, this is the 3rd year in a row, but for some reason, it's not just one weekend. It's, Will Morissette, founder and president of Morissette Pictures. It's called Spring Break Edition Part 1, this Sunday, 1 p.m. until free food and drinks, everybody invited. Let's hang and have a great time. And it's 8537 to 8529 Manatee Avenue West. They did a 5th annual live performances. It started, it looked like possibly 2000, no, it's the 5th annual, and I've got several different postings of every year. Reek and Will's Beach Bash, 2019 link up and pregame at Lincoln Park Palmetto was the pregame from 9:30 to 10:30. But it's
Oh, that's county operated.
it's a big bash.
We have police officers there.
You go from Lincoln Park to the Causeway?
Can't hear you.
I'll have Chief send it to you.
All right, thank you.
And And Judy, I sent everything you sent me to them and the chairman.
Any other comments
That's all
anybody would
she's
like to
got.
make at this time? If not, the last item is the next meeting will be July 30th, at which time Mr. Kennedy will be first up with his presentation. Thank you again. We are now adjourned.